Hello everybody, so I have an amazing berry cobbler recipe that I'm going to share with you today as part of my New Year, New You series for the new year. This is an amazing berry cobbler. You are going to just think you're in heaven, and it's even good like cold the next day for breakfast. It's totally worth it. I love making this, and it's so easy and really quick and healthy. Let's jump in. Here are the ingredients that you're going to need. You're going to need 4 cups of frozen blueberries, 2 cups of frozen strawberries, a lemon, some salt, some pumpkin pie spice, maple syrup, and oatmeal. Rolled oats work best in this recipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 cup of gluten-free rolled oats from Trader Joe's to my Vitamix, and I'm going to grind them down to create a flour. Now if you want to skip this step, you can use any kind of flour in this recipe. It doesn't matter as long as you have 1 cup worth. So I'm just using my Vitamix here in the little plunger to grind down some oats into oat flour, and that still keeps this recipe gluten-free and pretty easy. Now I'm going to thaw out my 4 cups of frozen blueberries under running water. This is just to kind of get the frost off a little bit and help with the cook time. And then I'm going to do the same thing for my 2 cups of frozen strawberries as well, just kind of thawing them out under running water. And once they look like they've thawed a little bit, I'm going to add them to a bowl, and then I'm going to start adding in my ingredients. So the first ingredient that I'm going to add to my berry mixture here is 1/4 cup of the flour that I just ground down. Any kind of flour, doesn't really matter. I just happen to use oat flour. So adding that to my mixture, and then I'm just going to mix it up a little bit. Now you'll see that some of my strawberries are kind of frozen together a little bit still, and that's fine. It's really not going to affect anything. I'm just going to kind of break them up with my spoon a little bit and make sure that the flour gets fairly evenly distributed. The flour is kind of like a thickening agent for this crumble. It's really good. So then I'm going to add a tablespoon of lemon juice, equals out to being half of a lemon. And then I'm also going to zest the entire lemon. So the zest of a whole lemon, the juice of half of that. So what I'm left with is half of a lemon that has not been juiced, basically. And I'm just going to use my cheese grater to grate the lemon zest. And I always want to make sure I'm using organic lemons anytime I'm using the zest in a recipe. That's really important. And I just try to get the yellow part rather than the white part. The white part doesn't have a whole lot of flavor, but the yellow part really does, and it tastes just delicious in this recipe. So now I'm going to add a couple grinds of sea salt, about 1/8 teaspoon or so. And then I'm going to add in about 1/2 teaspoon of the pumpkin pie spice. If you don't have pumpkin pie spice at home, plain cinnamon works just as nicely in this recipe. And then I'm going to mix this all together. Again, breaking apart the frozen strawberries that are just continuously sticking together. And then I'm going to pour it into an 8x8 casserole dish. You can use a pie pan as long as the lip on it is pretty high, because this does tend to bubble up. But a pie plate works fine. And I'm just going to set that aside, and you'll see I am not rinsing my bowl out. I'm just going to do the top ingredients, the crumble part, in that same bowl. So I'm going to add 3/4 cup of the rolled oats and 3/4 cup of the oat flour. So that's just the rest of the oat flour. And then I'm going to add 1/8 cup of maple syrup, and I'm going to mix that in pretty well, and it'll kind of start to clump up a little bit, and that's what you want. And I'm actually getting some of the leftover blueberry strawberry mixture from the side of the bowl in there too. It tastes delicious. So then another 1/8 teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of the pumpkin pie spice, or just plain cinnamon. Gonna mix that in there as well. And then I'm going to add, what I ended up doing here is I was going to do 5 tablespoons of butter, but it looked like 3 tablespoons were going to be just fine, which is why I started in the middle of my butter. I wouldn't normally do that. And I'm just breaking it apart into little pieces into my bowl. And I just ended up using 3 tablespoons of butter, even though the recipe originally called for 5. And then I'm just going to mix that around again, kind of mush the butter in with the oat and cinnamon and salt mixture. And this is the top part of the crumble, and the last thing that you have to do. So then I'm just going to add that to the top of the berry mixture that I had set aside. And I want to make sure this is all evenly distributed, including the butter pieces. So I kind of move things around a little bit after everything is in the pan, just to make sure that there's little blobs of butter all over the top. Now, if you can't handle butter, coconut oil works just fine for this recipe as well. And I'm just going to move the butter around just a little bit so that it melts evenly. And I'm going to bake it in the oven at 375 degrees for an hour, uncovered. And when it's done, this is what it looks like, and it is the most delicious berry crumble you will ever have in your life, and it is so healthy, and I had it for breakfast this morning because it was that good. Alright guys, that's it. Be sure to come back tomorrow. I will have more videos for you. Be sure to subscribe if you have not done so already, and I'll see you again soon. Be well. Take care. Bye!